Christmas Eve, 1926. A locked Mayfair ballroom, a millionaire's throat slashed ear to ear, no weapon, no footprints in fresh snow, no way out, yet one drop of blood hangs frozen in midair, falling upwards. And from the chandelier above, a child's ice skate dangles, dripping crimson. Who killed Sir Reginald Blount? How did his daughter vanish through solid ice and keep returning every Christmas for 100 years? Chapter 1, The Crimson Waltz. Never, in all the years I have set pen to paper to chronicle the doings of Mr. Sherlock Holmes, have I begun a narrative with a heavier heart or a more trembling hand. The church bells of St. George's, Hanover Square, had just tolled 11 when the hansom set us down before the blazing portico of Blount House. Snow was falling in the deliberate, murderous way that only London snow can manage, thick, silent, and bent on concealment. The gas lamps along the railings wore halos of ice. Each footman's breath hung like a small ghost before him. Holmes stepped from the cab first, collar turned up, eyes already quartering the street, as though the murderer might be loitering beneath the awning with a cigarette. I followed, clutching the invitation that had arrived only that afternoon. Heavy cream stock, gilt edge, the Blount crest embossed so deeply one might have used it as a seal. "Observe, Watson," murmured Holmes without turning. "The snow on the steps has been brushed, not swept, in a pattern of nervous half-circles. Someone has been pacing here for at least 20 minutes, waiting for a guest who mattered more than the 300 already inside." He mounted the steps 2 at a time. The front doors swung open before we touched them, revealing a butler whose face had the grayness of December dusk. "Mr. Sherlock Holmes? Sir Reginald's compliments, sir, and would you step this way at once? There has been an incident." The hall was a cataract of light and music. 3 chandeliers the size of omnibuses blazed overhead. Holly and ivy dripped from every architrave like green blood. The orchestra, full strings, harp, even a celesta, was sawing through Lehar's gold and silver waltz with frantic gaiety, as though volume alone could smother whatever had gone wrong. Holmes cut through the dancers like a blade through silk. I struggled to keep pace, apologizing to dowagers and dodging elbows glittering with diamonds. A smell reached me beneath the perfume and the beeswax, metallic, intimate, unmistakable, blood. We passed beneath a marble archway into the ballroom proper and stopped dead. The dancers had formed an unwilling circle 20 feet across as though an invisible barrier held them back. At the center lay Sir Reginald Blount. He was on his back, arms flung wide in a parody of welcome. His white tie and waistcoat had been a canvas. Someone had painted them scarlet. The wound began just beneath the left ear and traveled to the right in one clean, horrible crescent. Yet the most grotesque detail was his expression. Mouth slightly open, eyes wide, the look of a man who has seen his own death arriving and found it merely surprising. The orchestra played on for 3 full bars before the conductor noticed and rapped his stand. Silence crashed down like a portcullis. Holmes was already on his knees beside the body. He did not touch the corpse. He simply inhaled, the way another man might taste wine. "Dead, not more than 4 minutes," he said, so quietly only I heard. "Arterial spray still liquid. See the mist on the parquet. It has not yet begun to darken." He produced his lens and began a slow, crawling circuit. I forced myself to look at the room, rather than the ruin at its heart. The ballroom was a perfect rectangle, 60 feet by 40. 3 sets of French windows gave onto a balcony that ran the entire southern side. Each window was fastened by a brass bolt on the inside. Each bolt was thrown. Above, a musician's gallery, empty now, save for abandoned music stands. Opposite, a dais where presumably Sir Reginald had intended to display his infamous emerald. A single velvet cushion lay on the floor, upturned, the hollow in its center gaping like a scream. Snow tapped insistently at the tall panes. Inspector Lestrade pushed through the circle, ferret face pinched with cold and foreboding. Mr. Holmes, thank God, it's impossible, absolutely impossible. Holmes did not look up. Impossible is a word I have retired, Inspector. Pray tell me what is merely improbable. Lestrade swallowed. Sir Reginald was alive at 11 precisely. He mounted the dais to unveil the Maharaja's eye. The lights went out, total darkness, for precisely 32 seconds. I counted. When they came up again, he was like this. Doors locked, windows bolted from within, balcony 6 stories above the area. Fresh snow, no prints, no rope, no ladder. The orchestra never stopped playing behind the screen. No one saw anything. Holmes rose in one fluid motion. Yet someone saw everything, he said. He pointed to the floor. Observe the blood. It has been trodden in, one partial print, small, narrow, heel barely touching, a woman's evening slipper, size 3, perhaps 3.5. And here, he indicated a faint scuff near the French windows, the same shoe but on tiptoe. Someone stood here, balanced on the balls of her feet for several seconds. He crossed to the windows, drew back the velvet curtain, unbolted the center pair, and stepped onto the balcony. I followed. The cold struck like a slap. Snow lay in a perfect blanket, 6 inches deep, unbroken, save for where Holmes now stood. The balcony was narrow, perhaps 4 feet wide, with a stone balustrade no more than 5 inches across. Beyond it, nothingness, a drop straight to the mews below. Holmes knelt again. See here, Watson, a single droplet of blood frozen in midair against the balustrade. It fell from above, not below. I stared upwards. The wall rose sheer, another 2 stories to the eaves. No ledge, no gargoyle, no possible foothold. Holmes's eyes glittered. Someone crossed this balcony without disturbing the snow. Someone light, agile, and utterly desperate. Behind us, a woman's voice, clear, cutting, amused. Or perhaps, Mr. Holmes, someone who never left the room at all. We turned. Lady Ira Blount stood framed in the doorway, a sylph in silver lame that looked poured rather than worn. 22 years old, hair black as midnight water, eyes the pale green of glacier ice. In her right hand she held a champagne coupe. In her left, a single white ice skate, its blade darkly stained. She raised the skate in mocking salute. Lookin' for this? The orchestra, forgotten until now, struck up again behind the screen. A single violin, trembling on a high, sinister note that had no place in any waltz I knew. Holmes regarded her for a long moment. Lady Ira, he said at last, you have just promoted yourself from witness to prime suspect. She smiled, and the temperature on the balcony seemed to drop another 10 degrees. Good, she whispered, because the night is young, Mr. Holmes, and the dance has barely begun. Snow began to fall harder, erasing even our footprints as we stood there. Somewhere inside, a clock began to strike midnight, and from the musicians' gallery directly above us came the deliberate, ghostly scrape of a steel blade across marble. Once, twice, then silence. Holmes looked up into the swirling dark. Watson, he said very softly, whatever happens next, do not lose sight of that girl. She is the still center of this storm. I turned back to Era, but the doorway was empty. Only the ice skate remained, lying on its side in the snow, blade glinting like a smile. The crimson waltz had begun. Chapter 2. The Five Who Remained. The ice skate lay between us like an accusation written in blood. Holmes did not stoop to pick it up. He simply stared at the empty doorway through which Ara Blount had vanished, as though he could summon her back by the sheer intensity of his gaze. Lestrade bustled out onto the balcony, coat flapping. "Constable, seal every exit. No one leaves this house until Mr. Holmes says so." His voice cracked on the last word. Even the yard's terrier knew when he was out of his depth. Holmes finally moved. He crouched, produced a clean silk handkerchief, and lifted the skate by the toe stop, careful to touch only the leather. The blade was Lund patent, Swedish steel, still bearing the maker's mark, a tiny crown above the word Stockholm. The leather was cracked with age, the lace's original silk ribbon now stiff with frozen blood. "Size 3, he murmured. "Child's boot. Circa 1914. Yet the ankle strap has been let out twice recently. Someone has grown into her childhood weapon." He turned the skate sole upward. Embedded in the rubber heel was a single flake of green, emerald green, no larger than a pinhead. Lestrade whistled. "The Maharaja's eye?" "Fragments of it, perhaps," Holmes replied. "Cut deliberately to create a sharp edge. Our murderer needed a scalpel that would not appear on any search." Inside the ballroom, the 300 guests had begun to mill like sheep scenting wolves. Holmes raised his voice, not loud, but it carried to the farthest corner as though the chandeliers themselves leaned down to listen. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention for 1 minute only. A man has been murdered under impossible circumstances. Until the riddle is solved, this house is a prison. Anyone attempting to leave will be detained by Scotland Yard. Anyone attempting to conceal evidence will join Sir Reginald in the mortuary slab beside him. Thank you." A collective gasp, then a sullen murmuring. Holmes nodded to Lestrade. "Clear the ballroom floor. I require the 5 persons who are within 10 feet of the dais when the lights returned. The rest may retire to the long gallery under police guard." Within 10 minutes, the vast parquet was empty, save for the blood and the 5. They stood in a loose semicircle, each trying not to look at the body, yet unable to look away. Holmes began to walk the circumference, slowly, deliberately, the way a lion measures the bars of its cage. "Allow me to present," he said conversationally, "the 5 who remained." Lady Ira Blount reappeared as if by sorcery, standing now beneath the central chandelier, silver dress catching 1,000 reflections so that she seemed multiplied into an army of pale assassins. Captain Arthur Vale, DSO, late of the 3rd Punjab Rifles, tall, sunburnt even in December, dress uniform stretched across shoulders that had carried wounded men through the Khyber. His dress saber was unhooked now. The hand that rested on the hilt trembled, though whether from rage or grief I could not tell. Mr. Thaddeus Sholto, Sir Reginald's partner in Blount and Sholto, Eastern Gems, Mueva Lenaud. A small, damp man with a face the color of suet pudding. His dress shirt was soaked at the armpits. Every few seconds he dabbed at his upper lip with a handkerchief that had once been white. Mrs. Lavinia Crowe, society's favorite medium, draped in black jet beads that clicked like insect wings whenever she breathed. Her eyes were extraordinary. Violet, almost certainly helped by belladonna, and at this moment fixed upon the corpse with professional satisfaction, as though death itself were a client who had finally kept an appointment. Mr. Caius Vale, younger brother of the captain, barely 20, an artist whose portraits of debutantes currently scandalized the Royal Academy. He was barefoot, evening pumps discarded somewhere in the crush, and his white tie was painted with streaks of viridian and crimson that might have been oil paint, or might not. Holmes stopped behind Era. He did not touch her, yet she stiffened as though he had laid a branding iron against her spine. "Lady Era," he said softly, "you left us rather abruptly. May I have the companion to this skate?" She turned. The chandelier light fractured across her cheekbones. "I have no idea where the other one is, Mr. Holmes. I found that one in the cloakroom. Someone clearly wished me to take the blame." Her voice was steady, but I saw the pulse leaping in her throat like a trapped bird. Holmes smiled, the small, terrible smile that meant someone's carefully constructed world was about to collapse. "Curious, because the blood on the blade is still tacky, less than 20 minutes old. You must have discovered it remarkably promptly." Captain Vale stepped forward. "See here, Holmes, you'll not bully a lady in distress." Holmes cut him with a glance. "Distress, Captain? Look at her pupils. Pinpricks. She is not distressed. She is exhilarated." Mrs. Crowe gave a theatrical shudder. "The spirits are restless tonight. I warned Sir Reginald. The Eye of Cayley drinks blood every 100 years. Tonight was the anniversary." Holmes ignored her entirely. He moved to Thaddeus Sholto, who flinched as though expecting a blow. "Mr. Sholto, you were standing to Sir Reginald's immediate left. You have a scratch on your right hand, 3 parallel lines, fresh. Would you care to expose your nails to the company?" Sholto tried to stuff both hands into his pockets. Lestrade caught his wrist. The nails of the right hand were broken and dark with something that was certainly not ink. I brushed against the holly," Sholto stammered. "Devilish sharp, these Norwegian berries." Holmes leaned closer. "Norwegian holly does not contain hemoglobin, Mr. Sholto. You clutched the emerald casket when Sir Reginald opened it. Your nails tore the velvet lining. The scratches occurred when you tried to pry the real stone free, before the paste replica could be revealed. Am I warm?" Sholto's mouth opened and closed like a landed carp. Holmes turned to Caius Vale, who was swaying gently, a beatific smile on his face. "And you, sir? You painted the ceiling frescoes last month, did you not? 60 feet up on a boatswain's chair, suspended by a single rope. You spent 3 weeks staring down at this exact spot of parquet. You know every knot in the wood." Caius giggled. "I was drunk, Mr. Holmes. Drunk as a lord. Ask the footmen. I offered to paint their portraits in blood if they'd fetch me more absinthe." Holmes's eyes narrowed. "Yet your cuffs are pristine, and your bare feet show no trace of the sawdust the decorators left. Someone washed you very thoroughly, Mr. Vale, someone who loves you." He spun suddenly to face the entire group. "Now, let us reconstruct the 32 seconds of darkness. Sir Reginald mounts the dais. The casket is opened. The emerald is not there. A woman screams. That was you, Mrs. Crowe. Paid in my advance to provide the distraction. Lights extinguish. A simple matter of cutting the main fuse in the cellar. Time to the second. In the darkness, someone loops a fishing line garrote around Sir Reginald's neck. Weight forward, leverage perfect. Death in 4 seconds. The body is lowered silently to the floor. A blade, diamond fragment set in a signet ring, perhaps, opens the throat to create the arterial spray you see before you. The fishing line is whipped away through the keyhole of the French window, leaving only the single strand we found. The murderer then steps onto the balcony rail, on tiptoe, in ice skates, balances along the 5-inch stone, drops the second skate to the snow below as misdirection, and returns the same way. Total time required, 28 seconds, leaving 4 seconds for the murderer to resume their exact former position before the lights return. All 5 of you were in position when the chandeliers blazed again. Therefore, one of you is guilty. The question is, which one had the childhood skill to skate a 6-inch rail in the dark? He let the silence stretch until it screamed. Then softly, Lady Era, you were 9 years old when your father forbade you the ice at Hampstead Ponds. You kept practicing in secret on the marble balustrade of this very balcony. Every Christmas Eve while the grown-ups danced below, you skated the railing in your stocking feet, then in boots, then in skates. Your governess wrote to your mother, "The child has the balance of a Siamese temple dancer." Your mother burned the letter. Your father burned the skates, but not before you had learned to cross 30 feet of stone without ever looking down. Era's face was a mask now, beautiful and terrible. "You cannot prove any of this," she said. Holmes reached into his pocket and produced a second object, a child's diary, bound in green leather, the lock broken. "I found this in the attic trunk, labeled EB, do not open. Entry for December 24th, 1914. Tonight, I skated the whole length without falling once. If I can do this in the dark, I can do anything. One day I will be free." The handwriting matches the note you left on my consulting room mantel last month, Lady Era. The one that read, "Come if you dare, Mr. Holmes. The ice is ready." For the first time, her mask cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but enough. Captain Vale started toward her. "Era, good God, tell me he's lying." She looked at him then, and I saw something die in her eyes. "Stay back, Arthur. This dance is mine alone." From the musicians' gallery came the sound again. Scrape, scrape, pause, scrape, as though someone were testing a blade against stone. Holmes looked up, eyes suddenly alight with the old fire. "Ah," he said softly. "The second skate returns to its mistress." We all looked. High above, balanced on the narrow brass rail that ran around the gallery, stood Era, blount. She was barefoot now, the silver dress hitched to her knees, the missing skate laced tight to her right foot. In her left hand, she held the Maharaja's eye, the real stone, enormous, glowing like a captive star. She smiled down at us, a smile of pure, wintry joy. "Checkmate, Mr. Holmes," she called, voice echoing among the rafters. "Catch me if you can." And before any man could move, she pushed off with the skate, shot along the rail at impossible speed, and vanished through the open skylight into the London night. Snow swirled in through the opening like 1,000 white birds. Holmes was already running, coattails flying, shouting orders that crackled like gunfire. But I stood frozen, staring at the single drop of blood that had fallen from her blade to the parquet below. It landed exactly where her father's heart had stopped beating. Chapter 3. The Ghost of the Ice Rink. The skylight gaped above us like a missing tooth in the roof of the world. Snow poured through in a silent avalanche, erasing every trace of her passage across the gallery rail. For one stunned heartbeat, the ballroom held its breath. Then chaos erupted. Lestrade bellowed for his men. Captain Vale drew his saber with a hiss of steel and started for the grand staircase 3 steps at a time. Mrs. Crowe fainted with impeccable timing, collapsing into the arms of a footman who clearly wished he were elsewhere. Thaddeus Sholtos simply folded to the floor and began to weep, a thin animal sound that made the chandeliers tremble. Holmes alone remained motionless beneath the falling snow, head tilted back, eyes closed, as though listening to music only he could hear. I seized his arm. "Holmes, for God's sake, she'll be halfway across the rooftops by now." He opened his eyes, gray, bright, terrible. "No, Watson, she has nowhere left to run except exactly where she wishes us to follow. This is the 3rd act and the stage is hers." He spun on his heel. "Lestrade, clear the servants from the upper floors. Every maid, every footman, herd them to the kitchen and lock the door. Captain Vale." You will accompany Dr. Watson and myself. Bring your saber. You may need it to cut more than red tape tonight." Vale's face was chalk beneath his tan. "If she's hurt, Holmes?" "She is hurt," Holmes said quietly, "more deeply than any of us yet comprehend. But tonight she's also magnificent. Come." We ran. Up the marble staircase, 3 flights, carpets muffling our footfalls. Portraits of Blount ancestors glared down, men with emerald stick pins and eyes like winter. At the top landing, Holmes paused beneath a smaller skylight. This one closed, its iron frame crusted with frost. He pointed. "See the scratches? Fresh, made by a steel blade no wider than a sixpence." She opened this from the outside, entered, descended to the gallery, performed her charade, then returned the same way. All in 90 seconds. Vale stared upwards, throat working. "She used to do that when we were children, climb the old cedar at Blount Wick, walk the ridge tiles to the chimney, drop through the pot into the nursery. Her father beat her black and blue when he caught her. She only laughed and did it again the next night." Holmes was already moving along the corridor that served the private apartments. He flung open doors. Sir Reginald's dressing room, empty, shaving brush still wet. Lady Blount's boudoir, long deserted, dust sheets over the furniture like shrouds. Finally, the old nursery, locked since 1918. The door stood ajar. Inside, moonlight poured through a single dormer window, laying a silver bar across the floorboards. The room had been preserved as a shrine to lost childhood. Rocking horse with one eye missing, dolls in starched pinafores, a doll's house replica of Blount House itself. On the wall, a faint rectangle showed where a picture had recently been removed. Holmes crossed to the window in 3 strides. It opened inward. Snow had drifted onto the sill in the shape of a small, perfect footprint, bare, narrow, the toes splayed like a dancer's. "She stood here," he said, waiting, watching the ballroom through the open skylight below, timing the fuses. He knelt, brushed snow from the floorboards, and revealed a circle of chalk, 6 feet across. Within it, someone had drawn an intricate pattern, concentric rings, arrows. The Sanskrit syllable for Kali repeated 32 times. Mrs. Crow's handiwork, undoubtedly. But at the center lay something that turned my blood to ice, the companion ice skate, blade upward, driven clean through a photograph. The photograph showed a child of 9 or 10 era, laughing, arms outstretched on a frozen pond. Behind her stood Sir Reginald, smiling proudly. Someone had slashed the man's face to ribbons. Only the child remained untouched. Holmes lifted the skate with reverence. "The blade is warm," he said. "She held it in her hand not 5 minutes ago." Captain Vale made a sound like a wounded animal. He lunged for the window, leaned out into the night. "Era!" he roared, voice cracking across the rooftops. "Era, come back!" Only the wind answered, driving snow against his face like needles. Holmes closed the window gently. "She is not on the roof any longer, Captain. She's exactly where she planned to be all along." He crossed to the doll's house, lifted the roof as though it were the lid of a music box. Inside, the tiny ballroom had been recreated in perfect detail. Miniature chandeliers made of crystal beads, even a microscopic corpse on the parquet. And on the doll's balcony, a pipe cleaner figure in silver lame, arms outstretched, a thread of red cotton trailing from its neck. Holmes's fingers moved delicately. He lifted the figure, turned it over. On its back, someone had written in red ink, "Catch me on the ice, Mr. Holmes. Midnight serpentine. Come alone or the city learns what fathers do to daughters." Vale read it over his shoulder and swayed. "She'll freeze," he whispered. It's 20 below out there. Holmes folded the note into his pocketbook. Then we had better hurry. We descended through the silent house like ghosts ourselves. In the entrance hall, the great clock struck 12:30. Its chime sounded like a death knell. Lestrade met us with a squad of constables, faces blue with cold. "Roof's empty, Mr. Holmes. No tracks beyond the skylight. It's as if she flew." "She did," Holmes said grimly, "on blades forged in hell." He turned to me. "Watson, my revolver. And the Webley from the drawer in Baker Street. You have it?" I nodded, patted my overcoat pocket. "Good. Captain Vale, you will drive. Lestrade, keep the house sealed until dawn. If any servant tries to leave, detain them. Particularly the second assistant stillroom maid. She has a cousin who works the fuse box at the Savoy Theater. I fancy she can explain the 32 seconds of darkness." We burst out into Park Lane. The snow had stopped. The city lay under a hush so complete I could hear the gas lamps hissing. Vale's Bentley was waiting, engine running, exhaust pluming like dragon's breath. We piled in, Holmes in front, Vale at the wheel, myself in the back with both revolvers cocked. Vale threw the car into gear. Tires spun, found purchase, and we shot toward Hyde Park Corner, doing 50 miles an hour on sheet ice. As we passed beneath the Wellington Arch, Holmes spoke without turning. "Tell me about the pond, Captain." Vale's knuckles whitened on the wheel. "Blount Wick, Hertfordshire. Private lake, freezes hard most winters. Sir Reginald had it dredged, so the ice was perfect. Every Christmas he hosted a skating party for the county. Era was the star. She could skate backwards, forwards, cut figures of 8 blindfolded. Then one January, she fell through. Thin ice near the island. Servant dragged her out, half dead. Sir Reginald forbade her ever to skate again." Chapter 4. The Emerald Lies. The hole in the ice gaped like a black mouth that had swallowed everything we thought we knew about justice. Captain Vale was on his knees at the edge, gloved hands clawing at the jagged rim, trying to reach water that was already closing over with a skin of frost. I held him by the collar with both arms, my shoulder screaming where he had nearly wrenched it from the socket. "She's gone," I panted. "Arthur, she's gone." He turned on me then, face unrecognizable, teeth bared in a snarl that belonged to something feral. "Let me go, damn you. She might still... She's not breathing, man." I shook him hard enough to rattle his metals. "She chose the water over the rope. Don't give her a second death." Behind us, Holmes had not moved. He stood 10 feet back from the hole, the Maharaja's eye clenched in his right fist, moonlight striking green fire from its heart. His left hand was pressed to his side as though staunching a wound that had no blood. The wind had dropped. The silence was so complete I could hear the tiny ticking of ice reforming across the break. Holmes spoke first, voice soft, almost conversational. "She weighed the ice herself this morning, skated the entire lake at dawn, testing every inch. She knew exactly where it would bear her weight for the performance and where it would not. A perfect exit." Vale surged to his feet, rounded on Holmes. "You knew." The accusation cracked across the frozen air. "You knew she meant to die, and you let her." Holmes met his eyes without flinching. "I knew she meant to be free. I did not know which door she would choose until she chose it." He opened his fist. The emerald lay on his palm like a single drop of poisoned starlight. This was never about the stone. It was about the story the stone would force London to hear. Sir Reginald's friends in high places would have buried the truth again. But a scandal involving Sherlock Holmes on Christmas Day? That cannot be buried. Tomorrow every newspaper from the Mail to the Manchester Guardian will print what Era wanted printed: the locked nursery, the photographs, the auctions in Vienna, the mothers who looked away. She has purchased their silence with her life. He closed his fingers again, slowly, until the edges of the gem must have cut his skin. And she has purchased mine. I stared at him. Holmes, you cannot mean to suppress. I mean to do exactly what she paid for. His voice was iron. I owe her a debt. Tonight I discharge it. He slipped the emerald into his waistcoat pocket and buttoned it shut. Vale laughed, a broken sound. Then you're no better than the rest of them. She trusted you. She trusted me to understand, Holmes corrected gently. And I do. Better than any man alive. He turned and began to walk back toward the Bentley, footprints crisp in the fresh snow. I hauled Vale upright. The man was shaking so violently I thought he would shatter. Come, I said, we'll get you brandy, then we'll find out what really happened in that house. He resisted for a moment, then sagged against me, like a man shot through the heart. As we followed Holmes's tracks, I noticed something odd. His footprints were perfectly straight, evenly spaced, except for one place where he had stopped. There, in the snow beside his left boot print, was a single drop of blood, fresh, bright, not from the emerald. Holmes had cut his own palm to seal the bargain. We reached the car. Holmes was already behind the wheel, engine turning over. He did not look at us as we climbed in. Back to Blount House, he said. There is one last act. The return journey was a nightmare of skidding tires and silence. Vale sat with his head in his hands. I watched the blood seep through Holmes's glove and drip onto the gear lever, each drop hissing where it touched the hot metal. We entered the house through the servant's door to avoid the constables. The kitchen was deserted, fires banked low. Holmes led us up the back stairs to the old nursery. The room looked exactly as we had left it. Chalk circle, slashed photograph, doll's house with its tiny corpse. Except the doll's house roof was now closed, and on top of it lay a single object, the missing ice skate. Blade wrapped in white silk, Holmes unwrapped it carefully. The blade had been wiped clean, but the silk was soaked crimson. Tucked beneath the laces was a folded sheet of Blount House crested notepaper. Holmes read aloud, voice steady. To whichever of you finds this first, by now you know most of it. Here is the rest. Father did not sell the Maharaja's eye. He never dared. The stone was paste from the beginning, a lump of green glass bought in Hatton Garden for 30 shillings. The real emerald was cut into 36 pieces years ago. 35 bought silence. The 36th bought me. Every Christmas Eve he made me skate for his friends, barefoot on the ballroom rail while they wagered below. If I fell, I lost a tooth. If I succeeded, I kept my tongue another year. Tonight I skated for the last time. The fishing line was Mother's pearl necklace, the one he took the night she walked into the lake at Blount Wick. The blade was the shard I kept hidden in my doll's house chimney since I was 11. I have left enough evidence to hang a dozen men if the police ever look properly. They will not look properly. Men like Father own the police, the judges, the newspapers. But they do not own Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Make them look, Mr. Holmes. Make them see. And when they ask why I did not simply run away, tell them, because daughters are not allowed to run. They are only allowed to fall. E.V. Holmes folded the letter with exquisite care and placed it inside his pocketbook next to the emerald. Vale was weeping silently, tears freezing on his lashes. Holmes turned to him. Captain, you will take this skate, this letter, and the emerald to the editor of the Times. You will tell him everything. You will not mention my name. You will say Era gave you the package before she vanished into the night. Understood? Vale nodded, incapable of speech. Holmes continued, softer now. Then you will go to Hertfordshire, Blintwick. In the boathouse you will find a tin box buried beneath the punt. Inside are the photographs. Burn them. Burn every last one. Ira deserves that much mercy. He reached into his pocket and drew out the emerald. Accept this piece. This one was hers, the 36th. She wore it tonight against her skin. Keep it safe. When you have a daughter of your own, give it to her on her 9th birthday. Tell her the story of the girl who skated across the sky to be free. Vale took the stone with shaking fingers. It left a smear of Holmes's blood across his palm like a brand. I found my voice at last. And you, Holmes, what will you do? He looked around the nursery one final time, at the rocking horse, the dolls with their blind porcelain eyes, the chalk circle already fading under drifting snow from the open skylight. I shall go home, he said, and for the first time in 40 years, I shall sleep. He walked to the door, paused on the threshold. Oh, and Watson? Yes? Merry Christmas. He was gone. Vale and I stood alone among the ghosts of children who had never been allowed to grow up. Outside, the first pale hint of dawn touched the sky over Mayfair, turning the snow the color of old blood. Somewhere beneath the ice of the Serpentine, Ira Blount was skating still, arms outstretched, hair flying, free at last from every cage ever built for her. And in the pocket of Sherlock Holmes, a single drop of his blood dried slowly beside the greatest lie London's jewel trade ever told. The emerald was glass, the monster was real, and the girl who killed him had paid for truth with her life. I closed the nursery door behind us. The house was silent now, waiting for the newspapers to scream. Chapter 5. The tightrope of memory. The fire had sunk to a single ruby eye when we climbed the 17 steps for the last time that night. Holmes moved like a man walking in his sleep, coat unbuttoned, blood crusted black on his glove, the weight of an entire city's shame pressing on his shoulders. Mrs. Hudson met us at the door, candle trembling in her hand. One look at our faces, and she asked no questions, simply pressed a hot toddy into Holmes's fingers and another into mine, then retreated with the soft dignity of a woman who has seen too many ghosts before breakfast. Holmes did not drink. He stood at the bow window, staring down into Baker Street, where the snow had begun again, slow and deliberate, as though London itself were trying to erase the footprints of what we had done. I broke the silence. They'll hang her in effigy, you know. The morning papers will call her a monster. Sir Reginald will be sainted by luncheon. Holmes turned. The lamplight caught the cut across his palm, now a thin, perfect line, already closing. Let them, he said. Monsters are easier to bury than truths. By Easter, the truth will have grown teeth. He crossed to the mantel, took down the battered Persian slipper, and began to fill his oldest pipe with the harsh shag that always signaled a crisis of the soul. I watched him, throat tight. You gave her your word, didn't you? Back there on the ice, that you would carry the story if she could not. He struck a match. The flare lit the hollows beneath his eyes. I gave her more than that, Watson. I gave her the only thing I have ever refused a client, my silence on the record and my voice off it. He drew on the pipe until the tobacco glowed like a small furnace. Do you know what she whispered to me just before she fell, when the wind carried her words? Across the ice, I shook my head. She said, "Tell them I was never the victim. Tell them I was the blade." He exhaled a thin blue plume that drifted toward the ceiling like incense. And she was right. We were the ones cut open tonight. The clock on the mantel struck 4:30. Outside, a newsboy began to shout the early edition. voice cracking with cold and excitement. Bluant horror, millionaire butchered at Christmas ball, daughter vanishes. Holmes winced, as though each word were a separate lash. I rose, went to the window, looked down. The boy was waving a copy of the Daily Mail. Already, a small knot of early risers clustered round him, faces avid for scandal. Holmes joined me. Together we watched the city devour its breakfast of lies. Captain Vale will deliver the package at 8, he said quietly. By 9, the stock exchange will suspend Blount and Sholto shares. By 10, the Vienna embassy will recall its cultural attaché. By 11, the Lord Chancellor will resign. By noon, half a dozen lords and one bishop will have left for the continent on urgent family business. He rested his forehead against the cold pane. And somewhere, a little girl who was never allowed to skate will read the headlines and understand for the first time that cages can be broken. I turned to him. An era? Era is beyond headlines. His voice dropped to a whisper. She is skating now, Watson, across a lake that never thaws. Backwards, forwards, arms wide, hair full of stars. No one will ever lock her in a nursery again. He moved away from the window, suddenly brisk. Come, there is one last thing. He went to the bookcase, pulled out a volume of Dawn, and from between the pages withdrew a single sheet of notepaper, Blount House crest, Ira's handwriting. He handed it to me. Read this aloud, old friend. Let the room remember her voice. I took the page. My hand shook only a little. 25, done December 1926. To the 2 men who kept their promises. If you are reading this, I am already water. Do not mourn. Water remembers everything and forgives nothing, which is exactly what the world deserves. Mr. Holmes, you gave me justice when the law would not. Dr. Watson, you gave me kindness when the world had none. In return, I leave you the only gift I ever truly owned, the truth, sharpened to a perfect edge. Chapter 6. The Silent Skating Party. The fire is low again, the same ruby eye that watched us stagger home last Christmas. Holmes has not spoken in 2 hours. He sits in the basket chair, violin across his knee, bow resting idle. Outside, London is drunk on snow and silence. I know better than to break the hush, yet the clock ticks like a guilty heart. At last he lifts the bow and draws a single note, high, pure, heartbreaking. It is the same note the violin gave in Blount House when Ira vanished through the skylight. Another note follows, then another. He is playing the Skater's Waltz, but slowed to a funereal adagio. Each phrase stretched until it aches. I close my journal. The page is already wet. He stops mid-bar, lets the violin fall silent. She is here, he says. I do not ask how he knows. Some doors, once open, never shut again. He rises, crosses to the window, throws it wide. Snow swirls in, settling on the turkey carpet like white moths. On the sill lies a single white ice skate. Child's size 3, Lund of Stockholm. Blade polished to a mirror. The leather is new. The ribbon laces are midnight blue. Tucked beneath the tongue is a sprig of holly, berries blood red. Holmes lifts the skate as though it weighs 1,000 tons. A note flutters to the floor. I retrieve it. The handwriting is hers, unmistakable. To the 2 men who kept the faith, 1 year ago tonight, I chose the water. Tonight I choose the sky. Look up, E. Holmes is already moving. We climb the attic stair, push through the skylight, step onto the leads. The city is a black and white photograph under moonlight, every roof a frozen wave, every chimney a sentinel. Holmes points westward. There, above the Serpentine, a figure skims the air 10 feet above the treetops. Silver dress, white fur, hair streaming like a comet. She is skating on nothing. Blades flashing, arms outstretched, carving invisible figures of 8 across the night itself. She sees us, raises one hand in greeting, then she spins once, twice, 3 times, launches into a perfect layback and shoots upward, higher, higher, until she is only a spark of green fire against the stars. The Maharaja's eye, no, the 36th shard, blazes at her throat like a private moon. Holmes lifts the new skate in salute. She answers by tracing a single word across the sky in emerald light, free. The letters hang for 3 heartbeats, then dissolve into snow. She is gone. Holmes stands motionless so long that the frost begins to feather his eyelashes. At last he lowers the skate, presses it to his heart. "Merry Christmas, Era," he whispers. The bells of St. Marylebone begin to peal 4 o'clock. Somewhere a child laughs in its sleep. Somewhere else a father locks a door that should never be locked. Holmes turns to me, eyes bright with unshed tears and something fiercer, joy perhaps. "Come, Watson. Dawn is only 2 hours away, and the ice is singing." He leaves the skate on the sill where she placed it, leaves the window open all winter. Every Christmas thereafter, the skate reappears. New ribbons, new holly, same blade. Sometimes a single green spark drifts down Baker Street at midnight, winking out before it touches the ground. The yard never found her body. The coroner recorded death by misadventure. The newspapers moved on to fresher scandals, but we know better. She is out there still, skating the high wires between the stars, cutting truths too sharp for earthly courts. And every year, when the first snow falls and the city forgets, Holmes stands at the open window, palm against the scar that never fades, listening for the scrape of a blade across the roof tiles. Some nights he hears it, some nights he smiles, and somewhere a girl who was never allowed to be a child laughs in a language made of wind and starlight and unbreakable ice. The silent skating party never ends. It only changes partners. Chapter 7, The 36th Shard. The room smells of holly, old tobacco, and the particular silence that gathers when 2 men have said everything there is to say about a thing and still cannot leave it alone. I am 78. Holmes is 81, though he moves like a man who has made a private treaty with time. His hair is white now, but the eyes are the same winter gray that once froze Lestrade in his tracks. On the mantel, between the clock and the gasogene, stands a small glass dome. Beneath it, one child's ice skate, white leather cracked with age, blade still bright. Every Christmas Eve for 10 years it has appeared on the sill at midnight. Tonight the dome is empty. Holmes notices my glance. "She is late," he says. The window is open, as always. Snow drifts in, settling on the bearskin rug like salt on an old wound. He lifts the violin, the same Stradivarius that wept for Era in 1926, and begins to play. Not the skater's waltz this time. Something slower, older, a Sussex lullaby his mother sang to him on the downs when he was small enough to believe the world was kind. I close my eyes. For a moment I am back on the frozen serpentine, watching a girl choose the water over the rope. The music stops. Holmes is at the window, motionless. She is here. I join him. Far below, in the middle of Baker Street, the gas lamps have gone out in a perfect circle. Snow falls through darkness, yet the darkness itself is moving. A figure stands beneath the dead lamps. Tall now, no longer the child, no longer the sylph. A woman in her 30s, hair cropped close, wearing a man's evening cloak and the same white skates laced over bare feet. At her throat, the 36th shard, glowing soft and steady, the color of deep forest pools. She looks up. Even at this distance, I feel the shock of recognition. Era. Not drowned, not dead, alive. She raises one hand, palm forward, fingers spread. The old childhood signal. Wait. Holmes's breath catches. The first time I have heard that sound in 50 years. She steps forward. Where her blades touch the snow, the flakes melt into perfect circles of clear ice, forming a path that leads straight to our door. Holmes is already moving, coat, scarf, no hat. I follow, slower. Heart hammering against ribs that have seen too many wars, we reach the street. She is 10 feet away. The years have carved her into something fierce and clean. Scars cross her throat where the fishing line once bit. Her eyes are still glacier green, but the madness has burned away, leaving only winter light. Mr. Holmes, she says. Her voice is low, steady, older than the city itself. Dr. Watson. Holmes finds his voice first. You let the river take the coat, he says, weighted with stones. You swam beneath the ice to the outflow tunnel the Romans built. 2 miles in darkness, lungs of fire, then up into the Thames at low tide, a fisherman's dinghy waiting, passage to Denmark on a herring trawler. I traced the skate repairs to Copenhagen in 29. I always knew. She smiles, small, crooked, real. I needed you to know I could disappear, and I needed you to keep the story alive while I learned how to live it. She reaches into the cloak, draws out a thin bundle wrapped in oilskin. Photographs, she says. The last set, taken in Vienna, 1925. Faces you will recognize in Parliament, faces that still sign laws about what daughters may and may not do. She places the bundle in Holmes's hands. Burn them after you read them, then forget me again. And the shard, she touches the emerald at her throat. It was never cursed, only caged like me. She steps closer. The blades hiss across the ice path she has made. I have a daughter now, she says, born in Bergen. She is 9. Tonight she skates for the first time on a fjord that freezes hard as iron. I promised her the ice would always be hers. Holmes looks at the skate marks leading away into the dark. You came back to keep a promise. I came back to break the last chain. She reaches up, unclasps the ribbon, presses the 36 shard into Holmes's cut palm, the scar still there, white as moonlight. Give this to the river for me, at Waterloo Bridge, where the tide turns. Let the Thames carry it to the sea. Holmes closes his fist around the stone. Era! She stops him with a finger to his lips, cold as starlight. No more names tonight. She steps back. The gas lamps flare alight again, one by one. When the circle of light reaches her, she is already moving, backward, blades singing, cloak billowing like wings. 10 yards, 20. At the corner of Baker Street and Marylebone Road, she leaps. Impossible, perfect. Spins once in midair and lands facing us. She raises the new skates in salute, the ones she wore tonight, blue ribbons fluttering. Then she's gone, simply gone. The ice path melts behind her, leaving only ordinary snow. Holmes stands holding the emerald and the oilskin bundle, snow settling on his white hair like a crown. I touch his shoulder. Shall we go upstairs, old friend? He nods once. At the stroke of midnight, we stand on Waterloo Bridge. The Thames runs black and swift beneath us, hungry for secrets. Holmes opens his hand. The 36th shard catches the moon, one last green flare, then falls. It strikes the water without a sound and is gone. He drops the photographs after it, oilskin unwrapped, pages fluttering like white birds. They sink without trace. We watch until the river closes over the last corner of a story that began with a locked nursery and ended with a woman who learned to skate across the sky. Holmes turns up his collar. Come, Watson, the ice is waiting and we are very old. We walk home through the quiet streets. Behind us, the Thames carries a green spark eastward, toward the sea, toward morning, toward whatever comes after cages are broken. And somewhere in Norway, a 9-year-old girl with glacier eyes laughs as she carves her first figure 8, knowing the ice will always, always be hers. Chapter 8. The Last Scrape of Steel. Mrs. Hudson gone to her reward, Billy the page grown gray and retired to Margate. Even the creaking stairs have forgotten the weight of younger feet. Only 2 old men remain, and one of them is dying. Holmes lies in the bedroom that was once mine, propped against pillows whiter than his hair. The cancer has eaten him hollow, but the eyes are still winter gray, still sharp enough to cut glass. I sit beside the bed, my own hands trembling as I try to light his last cigarette. He waves it away. Save the tobacco, Watson. I have need of clarity tonight. Outside, London is hushed under the heaviest snowfall in 50 years. The city has changed. Television aerials, neon signs, the smell of diesel instead of coal. Yet Baker Street keeps its old geometry of gas lamps and shadows. On the mantel in the sitting room stands the glass dome. Empty these 16 years. No skate has appeared since the night on Waterloo Bridge, until tonight. I heard it an hour ago, the familiar scrape on the sill, deliberate as a heartbeat. I did not wake Holmes then. Some visitors are for the dying alone. Now he turns his head toward the window. She is here, he whispers. I help him into the wheelchair Mrs. Hudson's niece bought last spring. Together we cross the sitting room that smells of camphor and memories. The window is open, as it has been every Christmas since 1926. Snow has drifted across the floorboards in the shape of a perfect skate mark. On the sill rests the final gift, not a child's skate this time, an adult blade, size 6, hand-forged in Bergen, the leather worn soft as silk. The ribbon is ice blue, threaded with a single green thread that catches the street lamp and throws it back as emerald fire. Beneath the skate lies a photograph. Holmes lifts it with fingers like transparent parchment. A woman in her 40s stands on a Norwegian fjord, arm around a girl of 25. Both wear white skates. Both have glacier eyes. Behind them, the northern lights ripple green and violet. On the back, in Era's handwriting. Still, the same bold slant. To the men who taught me that falling can be flying, this is my daughter, Freya. She is a doctor now. She heals children who were never allowed to be children. The 36 shard is in her pocket tonight. She will never know what it cost. That is the point. Thank you for keeping the window open. E. Holmes presses the photograph to his lips, once, very gently. Freya, he says, tasting the name. Free. He looks at the skate, then at me. Help me, old friend. I wheel him to the window. The snow is falling so thickly that Baker Street has vanished. There is only white silence and the faint glow of the lamp below. Holmes reaches out, touches the blade. It is warm. She came herself, he murmurs, not a messenger. She climbed the drain pipe one last time, for me. He lifts the skate, weighs it in his palm. Watson, the roof. I do not argue. We have done harder things. I wheel him to the attic stair. He stands, somehow, on legs that have not borne his weight in months, and together we climb the 17 steps to the skylight. The leads are thick with snow, but the old path is there. 2 parallel lines where blades passed minutes ago. Holmes steps out into the night. The cold should kill him in seconds, but he stands tall, coat open, arms wide, face lifted to the falling snow. Far below, a figure waits in the street. Era, older now, stronger, the scars silver in the lamplight. She wears the same white skates. She raises one hand. Holmes raises the skate in answer. For a long moment, they simply look at each other across 30 feet of snow and 30 years of choices. Then Era does something I will remember until my own dying day. She skates backward down the center of Baker Street, carving a perfect circle around the lamp that never went out for her. Once, twice, 3 times. On the final turn, she leaps, spins, lands facing us. She blows a kiss to the old man on the roof, to the older man watching beside him. Then she pushes off hard and shoots northward along the rooftops, blade sparks on chimney pots, on television aerials, on the very edge of the world. Holmes watches until the green spark vanishes over Regent's Park. He turns to me, eyes blazing with the old fire. She kept her promise, he says, and I will keep mine. He presses the skate into my hands. When I am gone, Watson, leave this on the sill every Christmas. No dome, no glass. Let the snow take it if it will. Let the wind carry it. Let every child who ever feared the dark know that someone somewhere learned to skate across the sky. His knees buckle. I catch him, lower him gently to the snow. He is smiling. Listen, he whispers. I listen. Far away, faint as memory, the scrape of steel on stone, once, twice, then silence. Holmes's eyes close. His last breath leaves him in a small white cloud that rises, hesitates, and shapes itself impossibly, perfectly, into the outline of a girl with arms outstretched. The snow fills it gently until there is nothing left but winter. I sit beside him until dawn, the skate in my lap, the city waking below to a Christmas that will never know what it lost and what it gained. When the milkmen come, they find an old doctor weeping over an old detective who died with snow in his hair and starlight in his eyes. They do not see the perfect circle of skate marks that leads from our door to the edge of the roof and stops, as though someone simply stepped off into the sky and kept going. But I see it. I will always see it. And every Christmas thereafter, until my own appointment with the river, I leave the skate on the sill. Sometimes it vanishes by morning. Sometimes it stays, crusted with frost, waiting. Either way, the window stays open. Chapter 9, The Window That Never Closed. The stairs have been replaced twice, the roof 3 times. The street widened and narrowed again, yet the sitting room is exactly as he left it. The chemical table still bears the acid scars of 1895. The Persian slipper still hangs from a nail, empty now for half a century. The bullet pocks in the wall still spell VR in jaunty defiance. Only the glass dome is gone. In its place, one adult ice skate, size 6, blade polished every Christmas Eve by hands that remember. Tonight the skate is missing. I knew it would be. Tonight is the night the circle closes. I sit in Holmes's old basket chair, rug over my knees, the gas turned low. My grandson, John Hamish Watson, surgeon captain, 42 years old and already graying, waits in the kitchen, pretending to make tea while watching me die by inches. He does not understand why I insisted on being carried up the 17 steps one last time. He will. The window is open, as always. Snow falls straight and thick the way it did in 1926. London outside is all sodium light and double glazing, but in here time has stopped at 1926. I hear it before I see it. Scrape, scrape, pause, scrape. Not on the sill this time, on the roof directly above my head. I smile. My lips are dry, but the smile is easy. The skylight in the ceiling, the one we climbed in 36 and 52, every Christmas until my legs gave out, creaks open. Snow cascades through like white petals. A woman lowers herself through the opening, feet first, blades flashing. She is 60, perhaps 65. Hair cropped silver, face carved by wind and northern winters. She lands cat-light on the turkey carpet, skates carving two perfect lines that stop exactly where Holmes's chair used to be. Era. She has come home. She kneels, takes my hand, her fingers strong, warm, calloused from years of teaching children to skate on fjords that never thaw. Doctor, she says. Her voice is low, steady, the voice of someone who has outlived every cage. I manage a whisper. You kept the date, always. She smiles, and it is the same crooked smile that once broke a city's heart. Freya is a grandmother now. Her eldest granddaughter is 9. Tonight that child skated her first circle under the aurora. She wears the 36th shard on a ribbon round her neck. She thinks it is just a pretty green stone. She reaches into her coat, draws out the twin of the skate that has appeared every year since 1952. The leather is dark with age, the blade nicked in 100 places, yet it gleams. This one is yours, she says. The mate to the pair I wore the night I learned to fly. I promised him I would bring it when the time was right. She places it in my lap. My hands shake too much to hold it. She closes them for me. Freya wanted to come, she says softly, but I told her this room is for the original keepers of the window. Only 3 people have ever understood what the ice costs. She leans forward, kisses my forehead, cold lips, warm breath. Tell him the circle is complete. I try to speak, but the words are snow in my mouth. She understands anyway. She stands, steps back to the center of the room. The carpet shows no mark where her blades have been. The snow has already melted. She raises one hand in the old childhood signal. Wait. Then she skates. 3 strides across the sitting room floor, blades hissing on worn carpet, up the wall as though gravity is a suggestion she outgrew decades ago, through the open skylight and out onto the roof. I hear her above me, 3 perfect circles, the scrape of steel on lid, a laugh that rings like Christmas bells across 50 years, then silence. My grandson comes running, tea slopping over the cup rim. Grandfather, who are you talking to? I look at the empty skylight. Snow still falls through it, settling on the skate in my lap. No one, I say. An old friend. He sees the skate, frowns. That wasn't there an hour ago. I smile. My last smile. It has been there for 50 years, I tell him, waiting for the right pair of hands. I feel the room tilt gently, the way the world does when you step onto ice for the first time. I close my eyes. When I open them again, I am standing on the roof beside Holmes. He is young, 35, lean, hawk-faced, the Holmes of the Reichenbach night. He wears the old mouse-colored dressing gown, Inverness cape flung back, snow in his hair like stars. Era stands between us, 22 again, silver dress, white fur, the 36 shard blazing at her throat. She takes our hands. Below us, London sleeps under its white quilt. Above us, the sky is one vast frozen lake. Holmes looks at me, eyes alight. Ready, Watson? I nod. Era squeezes my fingers. Together, she says. We push off. 3 blades sing across the roof, over the edge, into the night. We do not fall. We skate. Across the chimneys, across the Thames, across every locked nursery that ever held a child who dreamed of flying. The city falls away beneath us, lights twinkling like fallen constellations. Ahead, the northern lights ripple green and violet, a palace of ice waiting. Era laughs, the laugh I first heard on a frozen serpentine in 1926. Holmes smiles, the small sideways smile that once solved 1,000 mysteries. I feel the wind in my hair, the bite of cold on my cheeks, the perfect balance of a body that has not ached in 70 years. We skate higher, faster. 3 parallel lines of fire across the dark. Behind us, Baker Street shrinks to a single open window, snow drifting in, the skate waiting on the sill for the next keeper. Ahead, the ice stretches endless, clean, unforgiving, and utterly free. We never look back. We never need to. The circle is complete. The window stays open. The ice remembers. And somewhere, a 9-year-old girl with glacier eyes wakes on Christmas morning to find a single green stone on her pillow and a pair of white skates at the foot of her bed. She will never know whose story she is continuing. She will only know that the ice is hers and that someone somewhere kept the window open until she was ready to fly. Chapter 10, The Ice That Remembers, somewhere above the Arctic Circle. Waverjahal, Giamp, the sky is a cathedral of green fire. Aurora ribbons lash the stars like living silk. Below, the fjord lies black and perfect, frozen so hard that the ice sings when the wind strokes it. A girl stands at the edge. She is 9 years old, hair the color of moonlit snow, eyes the pale green of glacier hearts. Around her neck hangs a single shard of emerald on a blue ribbon that has been replaced 30 times but never broken. Her name is Era Freya Watson Holmes. Tonight she will skate for the first time without her mother's hand. She is not alone. All along the ice, figures wait in silence, translucent as northern light, yet solid enough to cast faint shadows. A tall man in an Inverness cape, lean, hawk-faced, eyes winter gray. An older man with a military mustache, upright, even in death. A woman in silver lame and white fur, 30 years old and 22 and 60 and 9 all at once. They have come home. The girl senses them, though she has never been told their names. She simply knows, the way children know that snow is cold and stars are promises. She steps onto the ice. Her skates are white, size 3, Lund of Stockholm, exactly like the first pair that appeared on a London windowsill in 1926. The blades ring once, clear as a bell. She pushes off. 1 stroke, 2, 3. The ice answers with a low, perfect note that travels the length of the fjord and back again. Behind her, the 3 figures move in perfect synchrony. Holmes takes the left wing, Watson the right, Era the center. They skate backward, arms linked, forming a guard of honor no living eye can see. The girl feels them. She begins to spin, slowly at first, then faster, arms out, head back, hair whipping like a comet tail. The aurora dips to meet her, painting her face emerald and violet. She carves the first symbol, the Sanskrit for Kaylee, learned from a photograph her grandmother kept in a locked drawer. She carves the second, a circle with 3 blades inside, the sign her great-great-grandfather drew in bullet holes on a sitting room wall in 1895. She carves the third, an open window. The ice takes every mark and keeps it. When she stops, the fjord is a cathedral floor of light. She looks straight at the 3 figures. They nod once. Holmes steps forward, kneels, though the ice does not crack beneath him, and places something at her feet. A single child's skate, ancient, cracked, beloved. The mate to the one she wears. The ribbon is midnight blue, threaded with green. She picks it up. It is warm, she understands. She laces it to her right foot over her own skate. 2 blades now, one inside the other, past and future bound together. She stands. The 3 figures begin to fade, but not before she sees them smile. All 3. The same crooked smile that once broke a city open and set 1,000 daughters free. Era, the first, raises her hand in the old childhood signal. Fly. The girl answers with the same. Then she pushes off, hard. She shoots down the fjord at impossible speed, 2 blades singing in perfect harmony, the aurora itself bending to follow. She leaps, spins, lands backward, carving a perfect circle that encloses the place where the 3 figures stood. When she stops, the ice is blank again. No mark, no shadow, no proof. Only the song remains. Far away in London, a window that has never been closed for 100 years creaks in the wind. Snow falls through it onto a carpet that has not known footsteps since 1952. On the mantel, the Persian slipper finally falls from its nail, spilling a century of tobacco like dark snow. The clock strikes 12. Somewhere in the walls, a violin string, untouched for 74 years, gives a single pure note, then silence. Perfect, clean, unbreakable silence. The girl on the fjord feels it. She looks north, where the ice stretches endless and the sky is on fire. She whispers 4 names into the wind: Holmes, Watson, Ira, Aud, Freya. The aurora answers with a flare so bright it turns night into noon for 1 heartbeat. When the light fades, she is alone on the ice. But not really alone. Never again alone. She pushes off once more, skating faster than any child should be able to skate, carving truths too sharp for any court, any cage, any century. Behind her, the fjord begins to glow. Soft, steady, the exact green of a shard that was never cursed, only waiting. The glow spreads, north to south, ice to sky, 1926 to 2026 and beyond. Every frozen lake on earth answers. Every window that was ever left open for a child who dreamed of flying flares with emerald light for 1 second, then goes dark. The circle is complete. The ice remembers. And somewhere, a 9-year-old girl with glacier eyes laughs as she skates backward into the northern lights. 2 blades on each foot, 4 names in her heart, and the whole winter sky for a ballroom. She will never fall. She was taught by the best. The window stays open. The skate is finally home.